Well, welcome everyone to the World Goodwill webinar, our monthly meeting to empower the spread of light and goodwill in the world. All people of goodwill will be acutely aware of the necessity for right speech, for it is the effect of our words, the power of sound, whether in the workplace or in the family, or used on behalf of the oppressed, between governments and their peoples, that has the capacity to create positive relationships. When carried on the wings of love in thought, word, and deed. We'll agree too that speaking is the best way to resolve disagreements and bring about conflict resolution. Yet there is a continual war of words across all forms of communication platforms and so-called civil discourse at this time. However, there is now a growing sense that there is a crisis of communication in society as a whole, a lack of understanding of other people's perspectives, which is leading to ever greater division and animosity. For prior to mid-19th century, communication was so limited compared to the present, wherein everyone has a potentially global outreach on this twittering or Xing planet. Today, one person's words can potentially reach millions of people in a moment. And social media is such a powerful medium for the transmission of thoughts. But on the other hand, it's also one for vitriol and spite, a medium for those with manipulative agendas to anonymously wound others with hurtful attacks. And this is offset by a worldwide group of clear thinkers and meditators who work by focusing on the good, the true, and the beautiful, to raise thinking, directing their will to counter the propagation of organized untruths. The same rule of right speech obviously applies to the words typed on millions of electronic devices every second of the day, the world over. For words, written or spoken, all transmit the energy of thought. And although speech adds the power of creative sound, making it a magical force for good or evil, the written work also has a silent power, a row of symbols that release their quality of force to the reader. So we'll recall that the Buddha taught that right speech is one of the steps on the noble eightfold path of spiritual attainment. A careful sound of the words we utter in the many different and often testing circumstances of daily living can reveal not only how much our minds and emotions can still be swayed by separative tendencies, but also, more importantly, the extent to which we've been able to bring into our lives the uplifting and healing influence of the soul. So right speech is not an ineffective negative kindness, although refraining from criticism is an aspect of right speech, but rather it's a powerful tool that we can use to help in building the new era of right human and planetary relationships. And when practiced with care and precision, the lower self is silenced, opening the gates that allow the redemptive voice of the soul to sound and influence all situations. Another aspect of right speech is a much more specific one. It entails the magical use of words in prayer and meditation. In this case, the consecrated server unites soul, mind, and physical form and uses a formula of words to invoke and direct spiritual energies. And anyone who's worked at all regularly in this way knows that the intentional use of invocation carries an enormous power for good. And the daily use of the great invocation is surely one of the best uses of speech we know. But to give us hope today, Alice Bailey noted, as evolution proceeds and the human family rises into its true position in the great plan of the universe, right and correct speech will be increasingly cultivated, because we shall think more before we utter words. Or, as a great teacher has said, through meditation, we shall rectify the mistakes of wrong speech, and the significance of word forms, true and correct sounds, and vocal quality will become ever more apparent. So meditation is first and foremost the means of setting up a channel of communication with the soul, by means of which spiritual thought and right speech in all our outer relationships with the world flow out. It's also good to listen to ourselves when we speak, and this requires detached observation to hear the tone of the voice as well as the motive behind what is said, to see whether what is being said is faithful to that we wish to convey. There's often a disconnect too between one's speech and one's actions. And perhaps it is this gap in consciousness that led Emerson to say, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." And Lama Govinda, in his book, Creative Meditation and Multidimensional Consciousness, indicates that the highest achievement in meditation results in an enduring equanimity in everyday life. And he goes on to say that in meditation, the contemplative experience is integrated in the completely unified consciousness of the meditator. He is now able to return into the world and transform into action the knowledge and experience he's gained. And this seems to sum up beautifully the aim of these monthly World Goodwill webinars, with the use of simple and integrating words, the Goodwill meditation. For the motive, the creative use of meditation should always be for the benefit of others, rather than for oneself, in the same way as our speech should reveal our lighted thinking. And this is beautifully expressed by the prayer with which the Dalai Lama closes his book, Ancient Wisdom, Modern World. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those whose protection, for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those who have lost their way, with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those in need of light, a place of refuge for those in need of shelter, and a servant to all those in need. So after the meditation, Bernie Rochford will share her thoughts with us on speaking up derived from her own experience of whistleblowing. She now works in the National Health Service, the NHS in England, as a principal freedom to speak up guardian. But as a former NHS clinical commissioner, she experienced life-changing detriment and career derailment for speaking up or whistleblowing at work. But now her work has been recognised and she's been awarded an MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours List for her safe speaking up services, as well as receiving a Churchill Fellowship to explore whistleblowing, best practice overseas and in the UK. So before we hear from her, let's now go into meditation. Let's link up in thought with all those throughout the world who are working with this Goodwill meditation group. Reflect upon the fact of relationship. You're related to your family, your community, your nation, the world of nations, the one humanity made up of all races and nations. Let's use the mantra of unification. The souls of all are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all people love. Reflect upon your own and humanity's relationship with all beings who dwell in the higher realms of mind and heart. The spiritual hierarchy of saints, rishis, bodhisattvas, and masters honored by all the world's religions and spiritual groups. Imagine that you're standing together within the center of the spiritual hierarchy, immersed in the consciousness of the heart of love. For some, this heart of love is known as the Christ. Other faiths have other names for the one at the center, such as Maitreya, the Imam Mahdi, and the Kalki Avatar. Maintaining that high point of contact, let your thoughts reach out to include all members of the human family in whom the energy of goodwill is active. You sound the affirmation of love. In the center of all love I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. We visualize the energy of love flowing from the hierarchy through men and women of goodwill and into the hearts and minds of all people, infusing them with goodwill and creating loving and harmonious human relationships. Meditate on ways of spreading goodwill, creating right human relationships, and restoring peace on earth. Realize that you're helping to build a channel between the spiritual hierarchy and humanity, through which the energy of goodwill may flow, uniting humanity, helping to solve its problems, and healing all differences and cleavages. Linked in thought with men and women of goodwill all over the world. Let's say the adapted Great Invocation. We say it with deliberation and full commitment to its meaning, knowing that you are radiating its potent energies to humanity. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Well, now, I've great pleasure now to ask Bernie Rochford to say a few words for us on the wonderful work she is doing. Bernie, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. So, speaking up with light and goodwill, many assume they have freedom of speech, but to fully exercise that freedom, we need to foster an environment where not only do we have a voice that can be heard, but we also encourage, enable, and empower others to speak as well. In 2011, I was initiated into the subtle but stark difference between having freedom of speech whilst not having the freedom to speak up. Working in the NHS, the National Health Service in England, I raised concerns about patient safety, data and finances. At first, my concerns were dismissed and minimised and negated, until eventually so was I. Meanwhile, colleagues at another hospital reported they too spoke up but were not listened to until it became too futile to. Some were bullied or silenced into not speaking up again. We had entered what seemed like a parallel universe of reality, an illusion where only good news stories were told. Toxic positivity is the failure to see or report on issues that need to be addressed. In order to speak up, we need to face reality. If you read or listen to the media, you will be aware people the world over are speaking up about concerns across all industries and areas of interest. For example, in banking, education, nuclear energy, the environment, to name just a few. Quite often, it doesn't end well for those speaking up if and when the stakes are very high. Recognising this, I would like to share with you an initiative born out of a review into the hospital issues I previously mentioned and the difference that goodwill can make. One of the recommendations from the review was that everyone should have the freedom to speak up safely at work in the NHS, and that every provider of healthcare should appoint someone staff can go to voice any concerns or issues they have. Ideally, they would go to their manager first, but if unable to for whatever reason, then there should be an identified person, a guardian, who they could turn to. Thus, the concept of a freedom to speak up guardian was born, and I am a freedom to speak up guardian. And I thank you for the opportunity tonight to share my thoughts on the wider potential for freedom to speak up beyond my day-to-day job role description. For as time progresses, I recognise a greater depth and potential to the freedom to speak up movement. On the surface and in practice, freedom to speak up involves encouraging and supporting colleagues to speak up in the workplace. That action may be taken, leading to improvements in safety and organisational culture. Our mantra is speak up, listen up, follow up. But in order to follow up, listening up is key. Goodwill is central to the listening up aspect, as it requires the listener to give of their time, attention, and themselves. Not an easy ask in a speeded up world where more and more is required of us. But without the interlude of listening between speaking up and following up, little to nothing is achieved. Assumptions are made, shortcuts taken, and the wrong or poor solutions offered to concerns. Listening creates a pause to hear yourself and consider the response of another. There are many aspects to our freedom to speak up guardian role, but a good proportion of our time is spent listening. We support the individual and channel their concerns through the right people, mechanisms and processes in order to explore, address and resolve them. Some issues are relatively straightforward and others not so and take longer, involve more people and a different approach. I recognise the valuable and powerful difference goodwill can have in these situations. Because although we use the term case to refer to the issues raised, case 1, case 2, case 3, this can be limiting. Sometimes, rather than explore what has surfaced and why now, a case is minimised to a set of transactions to achieve an outcome and closure. The issue is reduced to she said, he said, you must, I will, how and by when. But if we look more closely, behind each case is a set of circumstances, context, people, concerns, fears, hopes, language, behaviour, power, intention. Often there is a lot more trying to emerge. We need to approach concerns raised as case studies rather than cases. Each case study is like a hologram, an insight and reflection of the whole. Synthesis of not only what is, but what can be. It then becomes not merely a case of achieving an outcome, but of achieving transformation and growth. I believe the emerging potential is recognised when goodwill is applied, for it enables us to see beyond the immediate, to go beyond ourselves and see with new eyes and a growing heart. Many of the scandals that are exposed in the media, they've been around for ages. They are not new. They were known, they were accepted or overlooked, usually because of indifference or fear. The call for us now is to review, as in re-see with new eyes what is revealing itself and trying to emerge through the detritus. As we reflect and cast light onto old problems and issues and hold to our vision for the future, we learn to work together to create a bridge between the two. In corporate or business language, we increasingly talk about coordinating services, cooperating, collaborating, compassion. This to me is goodwill in action, the intention to share and work together. We tend to shy away when the going gets tough, especially when conflict surfaces. However, with perseverance, goodwill is the medium through which we can achieve harmony through conflict. Focus is more often on the content of what was said than the sound. But regardless, it can be coloured by the tone in which it was said. Goodwill elevates the tone to become more harmonious as the intention and voices of all involved can be expressed and heard. Rather than escalating conflict to a binary one word against another battle, goodwill enables a more colourful tapestry of perceptions to be laid out and considered alongside each other. Goodwill goes a long way in simplifying the complicated, complex or chaotic stories that are relayed to us. In the workplace, I hear more and more colleagues say they are passionate about this, that and the other, X, Y, Z. It is an interesting phenomenon in that passion can be the driver for choosing a particular field to work in. But left unbridled, passion can be overwhelming and potentially destructive for the workplace as well as the individual. However, cloaking passion with goodwill fosters compassion and creates safer passage for working together. A key requirement for us, Freedom to Speak Up Guardians, is to remain impartial, not take sides. Some get confused by our dispassion and think by us not taking their side, we are therefore automatically taking their oppositions. This is not so. Rather, it is through goodwill and the timely interplay of passion, compassion, and dispassion that more can be achieved when revealing the sins of the past and the solutions of the future. In time, we aim to transform the culture and environment in which we operate. Rather than freedom to speak up being merely the application of a process, we ourselves could become the freedom to speak up, the medium through which we give voice to others. Through our intention, approach, and actions, we individually and collectively can hinder, suppress, or facilitate and enable others to speak up. We create freedom. The means through which we create the space and conditions that enable all voices to be heard and supported. The potential is huge and the responsibility huger. In that freedom to speak up becomes more than a tick box, and rather than being judged on outcomes and closure of an issue, we and the wider culture and environment are transformed over time. It is the journey to resolution that fosters freedom to speak up, rather than a specific endpoint. And I encourage you to experience this. Can you express yourselves in whatever environment you find yourself in? And do you enable others to do so also? Do you facilitate or hinder others' freedom to speak up? What do we and will we make a stand and speak up for? The Freedom to Speak Up movement is currently focused on the ability to speak up in the workplace. But as we become more socially and globally minded, there is greater awareness of how we interact with our environment, our planet, animal, plant, and mineral kingdoms. Voicing for our more vulnerable and seldom heard from is to be encouraged. Recently, a young musician wrote a piece for the piano called The Anglerfish. I'll put the link into the chat later, and I encourage you to listen to it then. But it was inspired. His composition brought to consciousness and gave voice to a most unusual fish that ordinarily doesn't have a voice and is rarely seen. It was simply amazing. The presenter was also in awe and is heard saying, "That boy can hear. He has an ear on him." I think we are venturing further and further into the potential of giving voice to others by recognizing our place within the whole. But whatever or whomever we are speaking up for, goodwill is the agent that ensures it is for the betterment of all. We need to recognize we are all at different stages of our learning, both individually and collective, our journey. Some people speak up about others, some for others. Some are learning to speak up for themselves, and some are speaking up about themselves as they recognize they may have erred along the way. We are all co-creators through our words. Hopefully I haven't been misinformed, but I was told the magic word abracadabra means I will create as I speak. If that isn't the exact translation, then my apologies, but it is still food for thought. Are we aware of what we create as we speak? Our past, present, and future. I am sure we can all remember words that have healed or harmed us in the past that shaped our present and future actions. Goodwill is the releasing agent that holds our past, present, and future into who we are and who we can become. Let us remember, until we create a freedom to speak up environment, we cannot fully realize the potential of freedom of speech and all that that brings with it. It is maybe more helpful to consider all the crises and scandals that are coming to light as revelations. Something more is trying to emerge and reveal itself. It could also be an indicator that long-held customs, processes, and practices need to be reviewed, re-seen in light of current and future thinking. Currently, freedom to speak up largely deals with unfairness, injustice, wrongdoing, more than potential, vision, and possibility. But its real potential, I believe, is transformative. The story of alignment and relationships, harmony through conflict, order and organisation in a collective sense, whilst aligning processes, procedures, and reporting structures in a more material day-to-day sense. Freedom to speak up is union through identification with the whole. When we speak up to protect and safeguard those we may not even know personally, this is goodwill in action. When we listen up to those speaking up, we are sharing the journey and responsibility. When we follow up, we become goodwill co-creators in our world. What world are we creating? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernie. There's just so many little gems in there to draw upon, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of people wanting to share some thoughts or perhaps ask you for some questions. So they can either do that in the chat or raise your hand and share it online. I was just going to, well, there's lots of things really. I loved what you said about considering all the crises and scandals that are coming to light as revelations, instead of just being so overwhelmed by them. You know, that is clearly esoterically or spiritually happening, that light is revealing, and therefore the crisis is in many ways well served, you know. And the word abracadabra, I remember hearing of that before. It's like a magical formula, isn't it? You know, fantastic.
It is. And for me, it's just got that hint of funness. When I was younger and listening to Abracadabra,
Yeah.
it's so magical. But now, working in the world of speech and speaking up,
Yes.
it makes me far more mindful. What am I creating? Um, so yeah, it's a powerful. I've got a little wand here by my side to remind me my words have power.
Right, we've got a few people already. Heather Stitt. Heather,
Hi.
hi.
Thank you so much for sharing that wonderful experience with us. I mean, it's very inspirational. I was just wondering, would you be able to explain what works for you in fighting despair and how to make this process of empowering yourself and others to speak and to be a positive influence, please?
I think one of the key things I've learned is dispassion. My passion because I recognize my passion now for speaking up and giving a voice to those more vulnerable and those who don't have a voice. I recognize the power within my own passion, but if left unbridled, I could take anybody out. Unless I cloak it with compassion for others, and including those who maybe they're ignorant, maybe they don't want to know, maybe they just can't see it. Unless I have compassion for them, it's a waste. Also, if I don't have dispassion, I can burn myself out very easily. So that's why I would say for anyone who is working in this area, the despair and frustration you will feel some days, and you just think, how could they not have got the memo? It would frustrate you terribly. But then it is about just centering myself again. Before I try to change anybody else, I have to get myself in the right frame and presence, center myself again. Because otherwise I just can't do it. So I think it is one of the biggest things I've had to learn is just about keep coming back to who am I, and who am I before I interact with somebody, and who am I afterwards. Have I left myself and them in a better place, or am I carrying the ghosts of frustration, anger? Anger is a big thing in this world because of this area, because of the injustice. So I'm not sure if that's answered your question, but it is about really centering myself before I can ever hope to do that for somebody else. But keep the end goal in mind. And it's definitely, if you're working with the health service, it's an old institution. There aren't going to be quick fixes overnight, but I do see the changes by bringing in compassion and bringing in goodwill. That's where the change is, and that it will affect change far quicker than a policy that is going to sit on a shelf and nobody else reads.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Bernie, somebody just in relation to that wanted to know whether you were versed in esoteric principles of goodwill before speaking out in the NHS.
I was. I was, but so I was aware, but nothing. My biggest learning curve has been going through the speaking up journey. Everything I learnt in theory has been put into practice and tested. I will say it was the most horrendous experience I've ever had, but it has brought me to a place I could never have imagined. And what I see and hear and the people I meet with now, I hope I never go through it again, but I would go through it 100-fold to meet and be with the people I am working with now, both directly at work and behind the scenes.
It's so easy just to write about understanding detachment and dispassion, but to go through that sort of fiery ordeal, you sort of question everything about yourself, I'm sure. and then come out the other side and apply it is it's what we all should do, really, in different ways. That's what it's all about.
It is, and I think for me the biggest so that there's lots of downsides to it, but the it doesn't outweigh what I have learnt through it, and it's the practical application of applying goodwill, of applying and disciplining myself with dispassion. And every day you go back and I have to think, was I really impartial? Was I really dispassionate? And I am aware for some people they can find that quite challenging because they want me to, outwardly show that I believe people. They don't have to, overplay that. I believe you. I just can't support you in the way that maybe your friends and family can, who will be your big cheerleaders. I am supporting and the cheerleader for people speaking up by maintaining impartiality and dispassion, because that will see me through to the end. And I can carry more people if I do that than if I am over emotional and fighting in a different way.
Thank you, Ben. There is a question here before we go to our next inquirer with a hand up, Wendy. I just want to say, Christopher says Pamela Barmish, a Washington University professor who studied at Yale, Harvard, and Rabbinical College, language, literature, religion in the ancient Near East states. It is true, she replies, that abracadabra, she's got, means I will create as I am speaking, or I will create according to the matter word. This Aramaic sentence might be the source of abracadabra.
That's wonderful, and thank you for putting that in. So I wasn't misinformed. But so Christopher, thank you. Because it does remind me to be very mindful of what I am saying. And sometimes in the flow and the speed of every day, I don't always remember. But when I slow down and thinking, I am creating as I'm speaking, I am more mindful.
Yes, creating as you're speaking, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to Wendy. Wendy's been patiently waiting with her little yellow hand up. Wendy? Are you still there? Wendy? She's not patient.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, it's just that I flicked myself off somehow. But anyway, at least you can hear me. I just want to say thank you so much, Bernie. It's like you're a symbol of healing. I remember when I attended the conference that you spoke about this subject and what you were going through way back, and how far it seems to have progressed. I know you said that there's still so much more to do, but my experience of whistleblowing goes right back to the very early 70s when I was a student nurse in a very antiquated hospital in the West Country. And very quickly, I witnessed a patient being smacked in the face. And I couldn't, I found it very difficult to contain that. So to cut a long story short, I went to the nursing officer and reported the nurse, only to find that I came worst off because I didn't realize, but it was in the days when it was like the old school boys club, if you like, and a nurse could become qualified by merit alone, so they didn't necessarily get the training. So you got a lot of nurses coming through that way who had very antiquated ideas, and some of them quite harmful. They wanted to do it the old way. And I came out of it where I was given a really bad report, which just wasn't true to my work, and it could be proved. But in those days, this is the point I wanted to get across. I mean, we hadn't even got the Whistleblowers Protection Act, which I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, came in 2011. So I just didn't know who or where to turn to. And I had to just sit on it, basically, and carry on with my work. And I know that I was disliked by quite a few people in senior positions. So that's that. So thank you for, it's so healing to know that this is progressing. And then on the other hand, I feel that it's every spiritual person's responsibility to be, if you like, a whistleblower, not ad hoc, of course not, but at least aim to be. You know, we have a voice and it's needed to be heard more than ever with what's going on in the world. And the other point I wanted to make was that I think Jesus Christ was an early times whistleblower, and he's a good role model for us all in that respect, because he didn't just, you know, he was going around from place to place, according to the Bible stories, enunciating his truths, and he questioned as he went along, as we know. And finally, I've heard, I don't know if you have, that whistleblowers have been likened to prophets at work, which I think is a great description.
Thank you, Wendy. That's such a nice description. I'm going to use it, if you don't mind. They say an idea shared is an idea stolen,
Exactly.
but it's a lovely expression, so I will use it. On the one, and thank you for reminding me of when I gave the talk previously. I have come a long way since then. In terms of years, yes, there's been maybe even 10 years. Could it be that long? But I feel like I have lived so many lifetimes in that. I can understand and appreciate how shocking and an affront to you it would be to witness what you saw. But I hope, like myself, it led you on to mark out boundaries of what is and isn't acceptable, and also that it pushes you forward to speak up for those who can't for themselves. So, thank you for the reminder, and thank you for that lovely description.
Thank you.
Bernie, we've got a couple of more people that raise hands. I would love to hear from Catherine Cruz, because last time I think we ran out of time. So Catherine, please go ahead and share your thoughts. You're on, you have to unmute yourself. Catherine, can you unmute yourself?
Just now, it just
Hello.
now came on. Thank you, thank you. It has been, this whole conversation has just been marvelous to be reminded of the power of our ability to speak up. And I really loved the reference to abracadabra, that I will create what I speak. I've been interested in the study of Aramaic that Neil Douglas Cox has given, And he says that the Aramaic understanding of when Jesus said to speak in my name or to pray in my name actually means to pray in my presence or to pray in my power. And that turns every prayer into an invocation by bringing in awareness that our speech is creating. So we've been given this amazing invocation, the great invocation, that is so powerful. And it just brings to my mind and that the importance of being aware that when we use this invocation, which we do frequently, that we are really creating. We're not just saying words. We are really making a difference in the world. So that's all I wanted to say, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just say, Catherine, thank you for that. And I wouldn't minimize it by saying that's all I wanted to say. What you have said there, it's big, it's powerful, it's huge. Our mantra is speak up, listen up, and follow up. And I liken the speak up to invoking. The listening up is that pause in between, and the follow up is the evocation. So for me, it's that cyclical invocation, evocation. But we need to have that pause in between. Yeah. So thank you, Catherine.
Lovely. Gosh, we've got more people. Can we take one more? Well, Alexandra.
You hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you. Can you hear me all right? I have a fan
Yes.
going on in the background.
Yes.
Bernie, I was also there when you gave that first talk about what happened to you.
Oh
It
gosh.
seems such a long time ago, and I was
Mm.
so moved by it that I came up to you afterwards and I told you my story, that I had spoken up in my workplace, which was as a teacher in a secondary school, and I ended up walking out and beginning a new career or a new life. And I was saying to you, chin up, girl, it'll all work out all right. Look at you with your MBE. I am so pleased. So thank you so very much for what you've done. And I just wanted to support what Wendy just said. Really triggered in me when she said we should all be whistleblowers. And I think what she means is we should all be truth tellers. And this is so essential now, that we find the truth and that we speak of it. But just finding the truth, the facts of any situation, whether it's individual, national, collective, just finding the facts is so difficult, isn't it? And now we have laws being passed in this country and abroad against journalists and students who speak up and protest and have found their voices, and the confusion is endemic. So it's so touching to know that you're there in the forefront, and everyone here who's through their meditation and their practice is going to find that clarity and then be able to speak up. And then when you are on the side of truth, it gives so much strength. It really does. So thank you very much. It was
Well,
lovely seeing you.
Can I just say quickly, I am aware of the time. Thank you so much. The support I received and from yourself and others, then it was the please don't anyone underestimate what goodwill and kindness does. The support I received from yourself and others just gave me the strength to go through the most horrendous ordeal I ever did. But I carried everybody with me. I couldn't go into that courtroom alone. And I think maybe sometimes when we send out good intentions, we don't know where they're landing, but we just assume and hope that they are. But I wouldn't underestimate the strength I took from yourself and from others at that conference. So thank you so much. It has brought me to where I am now. I also see that my MBE is, whilst I was the one that received it, I think it's an award for the group, for all of us who are there trying to send out goodwill and speak up and support all those who can't yet do it for themselves. So everybody take a slice of the MBE and share in that. But thank
Well,
you.
that's wonderful.
I
Thank you so
appreciate.
much, Bernie.
Yeah,
I think we'll all be clapping silently. That was
yeah,
it's such inspiration for us to put spiritual principles into practice, really, that whole talk. So thank you very much for that, and your time and your energy and your quality. And we hope to see you again soon.
lovely.
And thank you
Thank
for
you.
everybody for joining us. Unfortunately, we have got a new moon meeting at past, so I'm having to be very quick with the time. Cheers,
Thank
Bernie.
you. Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks.
everybody.